Hi, I'm Justin Smith, and you're on the record with the news reporter. Our guest today is Chadbourn Police Chief Ken Elliott, who is also running for Columbus County Sheriff. And we'll get into that here as the interview goes on. But Chief, if you'll start out, just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background.
So I grew up outside of Tabor City in Greensea, South Carolina, till I was about in the 7th grade. And my mom and dad separated, and I ended up being raised in North Myrtle Beach and graduating at North Myrtle Beach. After I graduated high school, I went in the Navy. I was a hospital corpsman, ended up finally stationed in Charleston, South Carolina. And after I got out of the Navy, I went into the fire service as a firefighter EMT, worked my way up through as a paramedic, transferred into Horry County, and became a retiree.
So you retired from the fire service,
yes,
and then got into law enforcement?
I did. In 2002, I started with Loris Police Department and worked there as a patrol officer, canine handler. And later on in 07, the fall of 07, I transferred into North Carolina with my law enforcement and worked at Fair Bluff, Tabor City, and came to the sheriff's office and worked there as patrol and investigations.
Okay. So what drew you to a career in public service? Because it was military, it was EMS, fire, and law enforcement.
When I was little, I wanted to be a firefighter. Everybody as a kid wants to be a firefighter, and got involved with Myrtle Beach Rescue Squad when I was 15, 16 years old as a dispatcher, dispatching for them to go out on medical calls. And then when I became old enough to take the state EMT test, I took it and went in the Navy.
So you've collected a lot of experience in all of those roles. What are some of the lessons that you've collected along the way and that you've brought to your role as Chadbourn Police Chief?
Treat everybody fair. Treat everybody you encounter the way you want your family treated, and you'll go far. You'll go far. Empathy and respect.
And so let's talk a little bit about maybe the difference between being sort of a rank and file patrol officer or a detective versus being an administrator, a chief. How are those roles different?
The administrative side of the house is way different. You have to learn how to use your budget. You have to work within your budget. You basically still, as a small town police chief, you still work cases, you still work on the road with your guys, but you still have to come into the office. You still have to do the budget process. You have to do the ordering. You have to keep all of the finances straight for the department and move forward.
And so budgeting, this is the time of year when local governments are putting together and finalizing their budget. So is that a part of your role also, is going to the town manager, going to the town council and making your case for additional funding?
Yes, sir. You go to the town manager, you discuss about what you need, you look at your last year's budget, you look at what you need to coming up, you look into the future. It's hard to look in that crystal ball, but you can look into it and determine within means.
So you were named interim police chief in 2021.
Yes, sir.
After Police Chief Anthony Spivey, he was arrested. He was charged with felonies including altering, stealing, or destroying evidence, embezzlement, and drug trafficking. What steps did you have to take to try to boost morale in the department and try to gain or regain trust from the community?
The second part was what I was going to go into when you started that question. Your first part of that is you've got to raise the morale. You've got to get the trust of the officers back into the department. Then you have to get the town's trust back of the department, and then the community's trust back in their department, and then work with the state and federal level, because we deal with them on a regular basis, to get their trust back in their department. You have to get out there, talk to people, start making good cases, show that everything's in line.
I was looking back at some of our coverage from that time.
Yes, sir.
And The town of Chadbourn made several big investments in the police department around that time. Can you describe some of that? How has the town maybe provided more resources for law enforcement in recent years?
So the town first started off was, let's look at our salaries. Our salaries were very low for this area, very low statewide. So they looked at the salaries first, brought our salaries up. Then we looked at things that we could do, because at the time there was not a lot of law enforcement officers going to school to become police officers. So we looked at programs that we could implement that don't sleep, don't eat, don't take a day off, don't call in sick. And we looked at a program with Flock with their license plate readers and their gunshot detection systems and their live video. And that's what we started implementing going forward to help us combat the problem of crime in Chadbourn.
So let's go into a little more detail about that. So we reported in January that you went before Chadbourn Town Council and you said that overall criminal activity in Chadbourn had fallen nearly 18% from 2023 to 2024. And you said that you gave credit for the technology for a lot of that. I mean, obviously it's not exclusively.
It's not exclusive. It's actually getting back out, getting your officers involved in community policing, getting them back out there, talking to the people in the community, talking to them, finding out what their problems are in their specific areas, and interacting with the community. You find out who's there, who's not supposed to be there, and it works out in the long run. So a large majority of it was Flocked, but it was officers buying into the community policing aspect of the change.
Right, so a combination of the technology and the community policing.
Yes.
Let's go back to the technology for a second. Can you provide a little more detail, help us understand kind of how that technology works? Maybe let's start with the license plate readers. So you've got cameras in several locations in town and they shoot photos or video of the license plates going by?
So at every entrance to Chadbourn, there's a license plate reader. As you come into town, it checks the license plate. It runs it against wanted, stolen, or stolen vehicle criteria through DCI. When it runs it, it gives an alert. We verify it through our dispatch center that it's active and that it is a current hit, so to speak. And then we act on it by either stopping the car and interacting with the people and getting the property back or arresting the wanted person.
Okay, so y'all put in license plate readers, but also gunshot detection.
Yes.
Is that right? So tell us how that works.
So the shot detection system is through Flock also. And what it does, it takes the sound of a gunshot and a database that it has, and in 60 seconds, it coordinates a location over using a triangulation method, and it actually pinpoints where it comes from with a GPS location. It overlays onto a map, and then it notifies within 60 seconds, the same way our Flock system does on the mobile data terminals in the vehicle. Once it notifies us, the officer responds to it. While they're responding, the second 60 seconds is doing a reanalyze to tell if it is actually in that location or it is misread and moves it to a different location. And it is positive results. It's usually within 90 feet.
So are there specific crimes that your department was able to solve because of this technology?
Because of the technology, we've solved hit and runs. We've solved abductions. We've had 2 children that were abducted in Myrtle Beach that our officers picked up on the license plate readers off the bolos. We've recovered property. We've had drive-by shootings we've solved with the license plate readers. And the gunshot detection works right together with it. It tells us where it is to locate the tag that came into town.
We had Whiteville Police Chief Paul Rockenbach on the show maybe a month or so ago, and he was talking about technology in Whiteville as well. I asked him this same question about how do you make sure that technology is not used in the wrong way? I guess the license plate readers or video monitoring might be one example of that. You know, obviously you want it to solve crime, but how do you make sure that you're not going too far in terms of infringing on people's civil liberties?
So I'll address the videos first. Our video cameras are in the city parks. We put them there so it can record and monitor to make sure that our children are safe when they go to the park. It only stays uploaded for 30 days. After 30 days, it overwrites. The license plate readers only hold that data for 30 days, and it overwrites. So we don't keep anything. We can't physically run a plate through the reader.
I got you. So you couldn't just go in and just type in somebody's plate number into that. It has to actually capture
Correct.
their plate. Okay.
It doesn't read the plate, it just reads the plate and tells what the crime is associated with the plate. It doesn't tell you who it is, where they're from,
Okay.
and all that stuff.
Gotcha. All right, so let's switch gears from the technology back to the people, right? Back to your law enforcement officers. You talked earlier about pay. One thing that we hear pretty consistently with local police departments and in the past with the sheriff's office has been recruitment and retention. How big of a challenge is that to stay staffed at the levels that you need?
With Chadbourn, when I initially took over in 2001, we had a bad problem. We got the pay up, we got the leadership up, and we have been able to keep within one person full staffed since 2001, late 2001. We'll have somebody leave within a couple of months. We've got somebody to replace them.
So let's switch gears a little bit to your race for sheriff. So
Yes,
at what point did you decide that you wanted to run for Columbus County Sheriff, and why did you make that decision?
I finished the FBI leadership classes. They start with a supervisory level, a command level, and executive level leadership class. After that, I was awarded the FBI LEADA Trilogy Award. And during that class part, it talked a lot about morale, how to lead, and how to bring everybody up. And I started looking at what we had done at Chadbourn with the morale to get everybody started again after 21, and started looking at the things we did. And I started looking at the crime rates dropping, the town actually working. It was us. When I say us, it's law enforcement citizens coming in together to create that bond to reduce that crime rate the way we were doing it. And I started looking at the crime rates in the county not changing. And I said, you know, I live in the county. There's a lot of people in the county. We need the same thing in the county. And I'm looking at running and doing the same thing in the county, bridging the communities together.
So let's drill down into that a little more. So what are some specific changes that you think need to be made as it pertains to the sheriff's office?
What, if elected, what I would do, me personally, I would start with the budget. I'm gonna start with the budget, look and see how the budget sits, see what is funded, see what's not funded, look at any overlap of funding, see if there's any overlap in positions. And then we're gonna drill down to what we need, less butts in the office on the seats and more feet in the streets. We're gonna drill down and get the patrol division to where we've got more people on patrol. Look at doing a precinct system to where we have outlying precincts to where we have officers, detectives, civil service deputies, supervisor, administrative staff, to where we can work within that community and embed in that community for community policing. That way, if you needed to do something at the sheriff's office, you don't have to take a half a day off to come to Whiteville. You can go to your local precinct and work out of it. One of the other things I'm looking at doing if elected is I want to work with the towns and the police chiefs in the county and create a task force for drug enforcement. Our drug distribution in the county is high. We only have so many. Let's add to that, because our drug dealers are going in the city and coming back out in the county. Let's all work it as a group, which will increase the amount of effort, increase the enforcement. The other thing I would like to do is to get with the Board of Education and start with a program similar to DARE that works on violent crime. Let's get our youth to find something other than violence when they get angry to work into. There's programs out there to do that, and let's reduce our violent crime rate on youth crime.
So you mentioned a couple types of crime there, drugs, violent crime. What do you think the biggest issue facing Columbus County is right now as it pertains to law enforcement?
The drug crimes and the violent crimes. That's our biggest problem in Columbus County.
So you mentioned earlier that you worked for, correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of law enforcement, Tabor City Police Department, Fair Bluff Police Department, now Chadbourn.
Yes.
Earlier for Columbus County Sheriff's Office. How do you think that experience working in those different agencies, would that be an advantage to you as sheriff?
It would be an advantage to me because I've worked every position in law enforcement. I've been the rookie patrol officer. I've worked in K-9 twice. I've been in investigations. I've been a sergeant over a patrol division, and I worked as a lieutenant over a division of patrol. And it works it up to where you can understand what's going on, and when you know what's going on, you know how it's supposed to be.
So you mentioned wanting to make the sheriff's office budget more manageable. Do you see some specific opportunities to try to increase the efficiency of or effectiveness of how that money is spent?
Without looking at their budget, which I haven't had access to at this time, I can't say that there is anything that needs to change in it, but it needs to drill down, because if you've got duplication of services anywhere, you need to eliminate it and put more of that emphasis. Us sitting in the office doesn't solve crime. Putting the feet out there on the street solves crime.
Let's talk about what's going to happen between now and the primary early next year, because you're a registered Republican, so is Sheriff Rogers, and so is Josh McPherson, so is Kevin Norris. So to my knowledge, those are the four men who are currently in the race. How do you intend to campaign? Because we have seen some nasty sheriff's elections in Columbus County over the years. How are you looking at how you plan to try to win the election?
What I plan to do is lay out what I would do if elected as sheriff. I'm gonna lay it out there, I'm gonna explain it, and then I'm gonna let the citizens of Columbus County look at each candidate and what they're bringing to the table and what their plan's gonna be, and let them decide. I have no intention. I get along with all of them. We've all been friends. I've worked with all of them. Great guys. But I have no interest in slinging anything because I have nothing to sling.
Why would you say someone should vote for you over those other men who we just listed?
They should vote for me to be the next sheriff of Columbus County because I have the experience. I have been in different situations, in different departments, and I have a lot to bring to the table with a plan that I know will work.
So if you were elected, you would inherit a staff of well over 100 people. How would you work, who, by the way, had a strong allegiance, to someone else previously? So how would you try to win their trust and kind of get them on board with your vision?
Get them involved. Get them involved in the decision-making of how we're going to make this plan work.
Gotcha. Well, what have I not asked you about that you want to address? I've got one question for you. Okay. Are there misconceptions that you think people have about either law enforcement in general or Chadbourn Police Department specifically that maybe you want to try to debunk or address? Is there anything?
No, I think that a lot of law enforcement's job is to educate people. 50% of what we need to do is educate the public on what we can do. And then the other 50%, we need to go out and do the best of our ability.
What is the public's responsibility when it comes to law enforcement? Because I think a lot of times we just immediately visualize, that police officer in that car responding to a call. But what is the public's responsibility?
Notify, no matter how small they think it is, contact law enforcement, call 911, and let us get there and determine whether anything needs to be done immediately, and then educate on how to get everything done.
Is that an issue these days? You know, because sometimes we'll report on situations, you know, a fatal shooting, for instance, where law enforcement says, hey, no witnesses are coming forward. Is that a challenge sometimes, getting people to speak to law enforcement?
It is. But what you find is when you get back into your communities, like we've started doing in Chadbourn, your community will come to you. It may take a day or two, but somebody you're going to encounter, whether you're walking in at the store or you pull up at a stop sign and somebody wave at you and you stop to speak to them, you're going to get information on where to go. You've got to get in that community, get that trust of that community.
Well, Chief, we hope that you'll come back on a regular basis. We'd love to get updates about what's going on with Chadbourn PD. Anything else that you want to add before we wrap it up today?
No, that's good. Thank you.
All right, Chadbourn Police Chief Ken Elliott, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us on The Record. To see all of our previous shows, you can go to nrcolumbus.com.